So my name is Dan Han. I work with VCU, and today I'll talk to you guys a little bit about SIEM. A couple of disclaimers, though. I'm not here to tell you whether to get SIEM or not. Okay, this is only from my personal experience of one organization and its own SIEM implementation. I'm here to tell you about some of the lessons I learned, and you know, whether you want to get SIEM or not. I mean, don't let me persuade you. I mean, I'm only sharing the information with you. Also, if you ask me overly complex technical questions, I probably won't be able to answer them. Okay, this talk is really based on the management track and how SIEM can tie into your general risk and security management framework. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I think we still got a couple people coming in. So a little bit about me. I worked in IT for about 15 years, working pretty much all aspects of IT and ended up in management. So I worked primarily in a healthcare and education setting, and I got some minimal background in some financial institutions doing application development for them. Served here in VCU as the security officer for the past 2 years. And I want to start, well, those of you who have heard my presentations before knows that I usually start with a story. But since today we're kind of straggled by time, I'm not gonna tell you guys a story. So we'll just start with a quote. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. Came from Stephen Hawking. So what does that mean? When I first started working in information security, I mean, I thought I knew a lot. I mean, I liked hacking at things. I liked how to exploit vulnerabilities. I thought that was what security is all about. And illusion of knowledge is really what I have. So at first, we were looking at individual server logs. Taking a snippet, trying to do some log monitoring manually. Looking at certain things, and here and there we find a couple of exploit attempts, whether they are successful or not. I mean, sometimes they're successful, sometimes they are not, and we thought we were relatively secure. And another mentality I had before was that hey, we're not a three-letter agency, and who cares about our data? And I think a lot of the upper management folks will share the same type of mentality. Even talking to some of our folks, I mean, they still think the same way. But I think the more you know, the more paranoid you get, I guess. But anyway, so we think we know our environment, and we had no metrics to track our results. So what ended up happening was, we implemented a whole bunch of controls with no metrics, with really no solid understanding of our environment, and you got a whole bunch of pissed off users, and a security control that looks security environment that looks somewhat like this, right? So, anyway, so then I grew up and realized that we were just nothing but ostriches with our head in the sand, and I had to ask myself a question. So do I wake up and smell the roses, or do I, keep my head in the sand? So I decided to wake up, get out of the sand, and to obtain the knowledge of my environment, I have to understand my environment as a whole. So then we started looking at SIEM. Here are just some of the SIEM vendors for those of you who are not aware. I'm sure most people would already know this, but so what is a SIEM system? I'm going to raise this question to you guys. Give me your definition of the SIEM system. Yeah, go for it.
Some is just log management, doing the checkbox, but the best accurate description, not with the caveat.
Oh, okay.
Being able to correlate.
Yep. Okay. Right. So correlation is a huge piece of SIEM. So there are some common misconceptions. Although it's called Security Information Event Management System, it doesn't really manage security for you. So you can't really, just kick your feet up and relax. It is definitely not a plug-and-play system. It doesn't necessarily reduce the amount of staff or resources needed to manage security, which is another misconception. To say, well, if we're correlating all of this stuff, our system is already telling us, what the offenses are. I mean, hey, what? Maybe we don't need people to go out and correlate those type of things, and that's not true. Computer's running a little slow. Okay. it definitely cannot be implemented overnight. As a matter of fact, it can be implemented over several nights. Probably can't really be fully implemented over a year, depending on how much resources you throw at it. And I'll go a little bit more into detail about that. Certainly not cheap, and it won't wash your car and make you coffee. I know. I was really disappointed when I found out about that. So, so what can a SIEM system do for an organization? So it can provide an organization with visibility into its IT environment. So if you really want to have the knowledge of your organization, know what you are dealing with, having this system can really tell you about the threat landscape and correlate that to your assets, right? So that I found to be extremely helpful. It does provide the analytical horsepower to correlate, identify, and alert on security issues, but note, it only provides the analytical horsepower. It doesn't provide you with an analyst. So you need a data person. You need somebody who can massage that data and really get the meaningful information out of it in order to really utilize the SIEM. It can be used as a central log management system, although personally, in our experience, we found that using the SIEM as a central log management system is very costly, and we have architected a separate system for that, and I'll show you the architecture in a little bit. It does provide some compliance testing and reporting across multiple systems, and it also eliminates some of the white noises if you tune it correctly, right? So why do we use SIEM? Why do VCU use SIEM? So some of the original concepts were, one, we want to understand our environment, have the visibility. We want to be able to collect meaningful metrics and use the metrics to help us justify our operations, as well as possibly get more resources and things like that, right? You want to prioritize your threats against the organization and against your higher classified assets, and then enable the sharing of threat intelligence with our trusted parties. So here are business needs. We need more visibility. I think I already kind of went through this. And we actually needed a central log management tool at the time of our purchase. Eventually we found out that the SIEM is not a good option for that. So here are some of our evaluation requirements. And if you are looking at a SIEM solution, you probably want to take a note of some of these. I mean, they may not be complete. They may not fit into your organization, but I think you can take a note of some of these items. So one, we need to make sure that it can correlate data from our LDAP, network equipment, servers, and security appliances. And we can also collect NetFlow data from our network appliances, right? It has to maintain the information for at least 30 days for correlation analysis. And if you think about maintaining information for a medium to large size enterprise like this, you also have to think about storage. So you have to have the ability to define severity of events and alert on those that meet a certain severity. And because if you just look and if you just triage every single event, there's no way you'll have enough resources to go and do that. So you have to be able to prioritize. You must have, and we thought that we must have a search and query capabilities that can allow us to really look at events that relates to a particular incident. For forensic analysis and incident analysis and things like that. So you also have to provide the ability for analysts to quickly drill down from high level to nitty-gritty details. And finally, it cannot eat up all of our budget, which we're somewhat successful at that, but let's see. So compliance requirements, in terms of the data retention, the state agencies, such as VCU, actually have to abide by the the Code of Virginia, which is a state law. And there are some record retention requirements, so we have to retain certain type of information for up to 3 years. And visibility requirements, again, I'm just going to mention all of these things. So ended up with all of those elements considered, I think we ended up choosing QRadar from Q1 Labs, and now it's IBM. They were the best value for us based on those criteria. And here's our architecture design. So again, we needed a SIEM for collection and correlation of critical servers and network security device logs, and also we needed a syslog server for the collection of syslogs, because we found that if we do want to use the SIEM to collect events, there are actually there's actually a cost, a step cost associated with that. So based on the events per second that you want the SIEM to handle, you will have to pay a certain amount, and the dollar amount is relatively high in comparison to a syslog server with some SAN storage tied to the back end of it. So maintenance of the logs is, or actually the retention of logs actually made a lot more sense when we actually stored it in the syslog servers. And then finally, for the long-term storage, the 3-year plus storage, we just went ahead and archived it to tape, and that saved us quite a bit of money versus using disk-based storage. So here's a architectural diagram of our SIEM architecture. If you take a look at it, we have. So first of all, inside of the university, we ended up classifying our assets based on the asset sensitivity, and again, that's tied to the CIA triangle. So we have category 1 servers, which are our most sensitive servers. Category 2 and then category 3 are basically 1 and 2 steps below the category 1 respectively, with category 3 being pretty much the servers that are handling public information. So as you can see, the logs are being fed through the syslog server and the tape backup and then fed to the tape archive. For all 3 categories of servers, the category 1 servers are also going into the SIEM log collector for real-time correlation. And if you take a look at some of the LDAP servers, DHCP, firewall, and AD, and all those type of things, they all go into the SIEM as well. So it's a pretty simple setup, and it was effective for what it's worth. Yep. The 2 and 3 are not feeding into SIEM. Yes, their logs are only archived. Their logs are going to the syslog servers, and then it's being archived because of the compliance requirements. Now,
how did you get to category 1, 2, 3? Obviously, critical business processes how'd you get?
yeah, so that's our internal data classification scheme. So basically, we looked at the assets that are used to handle the most sensitive data. So basically, how the asset provisioning works here is that before any asset is provisioned down in the data center, the asset owner will have to end up will have to complete a system security plan, and the security plan will say, hey, tell me what kind of data this system will handle, and who is going to be affected by the system, right? So who uses the system? That's right. That's right. So each one of the assets and creating that list is like pulling teeth. But eventually we were able to classify all of our assets, and it took a little while for us to do that. But
How do you, just coming from brute force experience here, how do you make sure that someone who doesn't really want to fill out the damn form fills it out and messes with, because he knows if he puts SPI data on it, it's going to delay things in here. How do you verify that category 2 and 3 don't have any of this SPI information? Because the auditor will find that on you. How do you do that?
yeah, that piece we're still struggling with. But if you do certify that as, say it's a category 3, a public system, you pretty much have to kind of sign in blood to say, hey, I will certify this. And obviously, people are made aware of the consequences. If you do intentionally misclassify this, your systems, then yeah, you are going to be on the hook. So
You don't category 2 and 3
no,
find it, go kick someone?
not at this point. We did at one point run identity finder and the spider and all of those type of things, trying to look for just the social security numbers and those type of data. But we haven't ran such tool for a little while. So, but yeah, I mean, right now it's a lot of it's based on the honor system. So whether there are people that are misclassifying things, I'm sure there are, but I'm fairly confident that we do have most of our most critical assets protected under Category 1. So, but good question, though. And feel free to ask me any questions while I'm presenting. So, yep. Pulling data back from tape, yeah, back from the tape is a little bit more difficult than pulling it directly from disk. But yes, it is possible. Yeah, well, I want to see the data from 2 years ago, like authentication data, right? So yeah, it is possible. We can get that, but I mean, it's not going to be instantaneous. So it'll require resource. So that's how that works.
Is there any MCV inside this SIEM environment, or is it all systems?
This is just all VCU right now. Yeah, so we haven't really had a real discussion on what to do with MCV, and on top of that, VCU health systems. I mean, they are their own separate legal entity, so there's a little bit of difference there. So, yep. Anyway, all right. So here's our current implementation. We have a management console. We have a flow collector for a net flow information, and we have a log collector for the event information. So what we're seeing right now, so we've been tuning out a lot of the white noise that we're seeing in our networks, and right now we're still seeing about 1,000 to 2,000 correlated offenses per week. And keep in mind, our security team consists of 4 people, and we have 2,000 events per week. Okay, so how do you deal with that? I don't know, but I have a couple ideas, and there is something that we're doing right now, and I will share that in a little bit. But so at the current log and flow volume, we're seeing about in our environment we're seeing about an average of about 2,000 events per second, and at peak times we can see over 10,000 events per second coming from the servers and the DHCP servers and DHCP and the AD and all those things, and we're seeing an average of about 400,000 flows per minute. So our continual implementation efforts, we need to do some additional tuning because there are still events and offenses that are false. Well, I wouldn't call it false positives. I would say that they are probably irrelevant, and there are also things that that are actually false positives. But I think we have made a lot of leeway. When we first got the system, we were seeing upwards of 40,000 events. So we have tuned it down quite a bit. So we obviously need to have capacity adjustments. Every single time when you add on a new system to the SIEM, when you start collecting from a new log source, you have to keep in mind that you do have a capacity limitation. And when you hit that limitation, there's going to be a step cost for you to go up to the next level. And your hardware itself also has a limitation. So when you reach the hardware limitation, you'll have to go buy another box, which is going to be a hefty cost again. So again, understanding your capacity is very important. Right now, like I said before, we are struggling with incident response. So I think incident response integration is a key to a proper SIEM implementation. If you know about the problems, then the plausible deniability is gone. You have to do something about it, right? So, one thing that we've been thinking is we were thinking about potentially integrating with a managed security service provider and have the security service provider do the first level triage for us. So here are some lessons learned, and I have a lot of lessons learned. So first of which is this is a large financial investment. Now, the one-time cost that you will be spending, or that's excluding the maintenance, but the initial cost that goes toward the SIEM hardware and the software is not going to be enough. So the SIEM appliances support, I mean, that's only a small piece of it. You have to also budget the FTE times required to effectively manage and monitor SIEM. So again, you have the analytical horsepower. You have to have analysts that go with it. And we really had to learn that the hard way. So Additional FTE hours are going to be needed for incident handling and response. So with the SIEM, you are going to be expecting to see quite a bit more offenses, things that maybe you normally wouldn't see will start popping up, and you'll have to be able to triage those particular incidents. So you will need to have additional efforts, for source connection maintenance and sysadmins, and depending on your environment and your culture, things are going to be different. Some sysadmins may be easier to work with, some may not be, and you have to kind of, fight your political battles and get the source and logs from them. And the other thing from the technical perspective is SIEMs. Most of the SIEMs out of the box, they do take your most common log sources. However, when you start having some custom homebrew system trying to send logs, sometimes you need to have parsers for them. And depending on the vendor that you go with, some vendors will actually charge you for writing custom parsers. Some will let you, write your own parsers and teach you how to do that. So take that into consideration if you are looking at implementing SIEM, or if you are in the process of implementing it. Obviously, I'm going to mention again, increased investments to incident response, and there's going to be a hefty data storage cost if you're trying to keep your data for a prolonged period of time. So just keep that in mind, especially if you want to do something like real-time packet captures and things like that. Yeah, that's something we're looking at now, and the data storage storage cost is insane. So anyway. Here's some other lessons learned. So again, like I mentioned before, it's way too expensive as a log collector. You really shouldn't be using this thing as a log collector just because of the step costs that are involved in the additional capacity. You have to scope your expectations correctly. So what are you trying to capture? Are you trying to capture your AD data? Are you trying to capture your antivirus logs from your endpoints or your firewalls? I mean, understand what you want to see from the beginning. That's going to save you a lot of headaches down the road for capacity upgrades and things like that. So, and just keep in mind, for every single thing that you add to it, you have to plan additional capacity in terms of hardware and licensing, as well as potentially your FTEs. So everything is tied in together. So again, plan your capacity. You want to define a scope, understand the cost structure. I know not every single SIEM vendor have the same cost structure. Some of them will actually use events per second, which is what our system uses. Basically, once you pass a certain predefined events per second, it's just gonna start dropping data. And you don't want the thing to drop data, because then you're going blind. You're definitely missing certain things, right? So, if you're collecting net flow data, you have to understand your capacity and plan for the appropriate capacity. And I honestly don't know how you will know how much net flow data that you'll have before you get a SIEM. I mean, for me, it was kind of a chicken and egg problem. I mean, once I got the SIEM, I got a better understanding of our environment, and I thought, well, hey, I thought I knew my environment, but I didn't. So now I need all of these additional capacity. But if you have a better way of understanding your environment ahead of time, then definitely do that. Understand your various changes around log sources, flow per minute cost for net flow, and EPS for logs and events, and etc. Can't stress this one enough. Fortify your incident handling capabilities, because you will see tons and tons of incidents coming through. So what we ended up doing with our 2,000 events per week, or 2,000 offenses per week, is we classify the offenses by the assets they affect, right? So if it is tied to a Category 1 asset in VCU, we get automatic notification to the security team email system. So then we will immediately go in and triage those type of events. For Category 2 and Category 3, we don't prioritize it that way. For Category 2, we basically log into the system. I mean, there's actually a for Q1 there's a kind of a ticketing triaging type of system already built in. So you assign the category 2s first, and if you have capacity left over, and we don't, if you have capacity left over, you can assign some of the more some of the incidents that are actually affecting category 3 assets. So, but anyway, I think the only way you can properly handle the incidents that you have, I mean, at least for us, the only way that I found is that you have to prioritize your assets. I mean, really base everything on risk. Right now, we're not heavily looking into the threat landscape itself as far as the threat types. So basically, anything that's targeting category 1, we will look at it, and that's the bottom line. And with that particular model that we're going with, we are able to at least function and handle all of the category 1 alerts every week with some leftover capacity to handle category 2, but not a whole lot of capacity. And again, you want to ensure that you have the ability to collect log and flow data. So you determine whether a log collection agent will be required to collect logs of any log sources. That's the parsers. And you have to make sure the parsers will work in your architecture. So some of the log agents, or I'm sorry, that's not the parsers, but the log agents basically are the agents that are installed on the servers that will be responsible for forwarding logs to your SIEM. So depending on how you architect your SIEM solution, some of the log agents will actually forward only to one source. Like for instance, for us, we have to have the category 1 servers forward these logs to both the syslog server and the SIEM. Right now, having the server directly do that is difficult because our log collection agent can only forward to one source. So we have to do some monkey around with this syslog server and then try to forward it directly from the syslog server. So again, understand the capabilities and capacity of your log collection agent is going to be pretty important. So, and finally, the logs alone are really not enough. So you have to also get your flow data. If you're only getting the logs, you're really just getting half of the picture. The flow data will end up telling you a lot more about what's happening on the network. I mean, you can say, yeah, there's a unauthorized authentication happening on one particular server, and if you want to see whether data have left that server or not, then you need to see that that flow data and see what kind of information, what kind of communications is happening between your compromised assets and the adversary, right? So the next lesson is you have to use the data that you collect. So establish your security metrics for your organization based on the data you collect. And for us, we compared our data with some of the industry statistics, mostly based off of the data breach statistics. So we don't really have the stats for, what type of incidents are happening and so on and so forth. But we do have stats on what kind of incidents are causing a data breach, right? So we're comparing our data with the industry stats, and with that comparison, a lot of times you can see the gaps between your environment and your similar peer institutions. So here are just some of the metrics that we have defined in-house. Number of offenses per week, and if you look at the bottom graph on the left, that's actually the number of offenses this week for this year so far. And as you can see, things are jumping everywhere. And again, when you're seeing the disparities, you have to ask yourself why, and look into those particular cases. And I mean, some of these things might be caused by a new update to the SIEM that added some new detection rules, and those rules are not tuned. Then all of a sudden your events will just spike up. Some may be caused by some type of external attack. I mean, some also may be caused by just simply the students being on site. If you look at the back, not the last two columns. The last two columns are actually averages, but if you look at I guess the fifth column from the back, all the way down. As you see, as the students left the campus, our incidents just dropped significantly. So I'm suspecting that is a pattern because we saw similar things during the winter, and the first two columns are actually the first couple of weeks in January. So again, you are seeing very little activity there. So so the second metric that we have is the most targeted systems. We want to see who are the attackers going after, right? And that can really help us to identify the problem areas that we may need to focus on. And if we correlate with the most targeted systems with the type of data that those systems are handling, then we can have a really good handle on what type of on the categorization or classification of that system, so that we can ensure we have the adequate protection strategy executed against those systems. And the last one I have up there is the most prominent attack types. And the SIEM is not going to get you all of the attack types, because you still have theft, and you still have loss and human error and those type of things. And the SIEM is probably not going to capture that. But in terms of cyber attack, it is going to let you see your SQL injections, assuming that you do have some type of IDS that can detect those types of attacks. You will be able to see that, right? So you can see SQL injection, virus infection, and whatnot. So the middle graph is actually the attack types. I didn't list the legend in there because I didn't know how much information I should share, but but that's what I have. And the last graph in the back is basically the systems that are being targeted, and that is also correlated with the type of attacks that are targeting each system. So, and well, I guess I'll be finishing already. Okay, so last thing I want to mention is resources. So resources is very important. You will need at least one FTE for a small to medium implementation. This is according to Gartner. And for us, I mean, I wouldn't call ourselves a small implementation. We're probably a medium to large implementation. So assigning the adequate FTEs to the project is imperative. You need to make sure that the SIEM is tuned. So if you don't have the SIEM, or if the SIEM is not tuned, you're going to have a lot of white noises, and the white noises are just basically going to cause headaches for your analysts, and it's not going to provide you much value. So you have to tune out the white noises. Ensure that proper incident response procedures are updated. Incorporate your help desk if you can. I mean, if they can help you do some type of first level triage, or even if you involve, say, your network operations center, if you need 24/7 triage, you can do that, or try to look at MSSPs and things like that. I mean, they may also be able to help you. And again, ensure adequate FTE is assigned, and ensure that human capital is properly trained to handle the SIEM appliance. If you throw somebody at SIEM and where they have no experience in dealing with network traffic or looking at logs, I mean, you're probably not going to get much out of it. So again, make sure people are trained, and make sure you have enough resources for this. So here's the bottom line, my summary. So you can choose ignorance, illusion of knowledge, or knowledge. I chose knowledge, and I have some regrets, but for the most part, hey, it's good. So if you do choose knowledge, just remember that I'm going to borrow the Spider-Man line. So with great power comes with great responsibility, and knowledge have to be paired with diligence and care. So you know about it. There's no plausible deniability. Do something about it, and make sure that it can be justified in the court of law in case if you in case of something really hits the fan, right? So anyway, be sure to plan for the scope and adequately fund the project. And again, I don't have a good answer for this. For us, it was just a chicken and egg problem. I mean, we didn't understand our scope, didn't understand our environment until we got a SIEM in. Then we understood our environment better and ended up having to dump some more money into the project. But anyway, finally assigned the adequate resources to the project. All right, so I got the STFU signed. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to come up and ask me, and I'll be happy to answer. So.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.